The desert air hangs thick and still in the pre-dawn darkness behind the Desert Mirage Casino. Surveillance cameras mounted high on rust-stained walls capture everything in grainy black and white, the flickering sodium lights casting long shadows across cracked asphalt, the industrial dumpsters lined up like metal soldiers, the loading dock empty except for one figure moving through the darkness with practiced ease. The timestamp reads 3:42 a.m. A garbage truck reverses slowly into position, its backup alarm barely audible over the constant mechanical hum of the casino's ventilation systems. The driver steps down from the cab, his movements casual, unhurried. He waves to the security guard stationed at the service entrance, a sleepy gesture returned with equal indifference. Then he disappears behind the dumpsters. By morning, when the vault department begins their routine audit, they will discover that $13.4 million has vanished from the casino's holdings. The only thing missing from the security footage is one ordinary trash container. The only person with access to every corner of the casino's waste management system is a man nobody ever really noticed at all. Before we descend into the shadowy corridors where one of the most audacious casino heists in modern history was planned and executed, take a moment to like this video, leave a comment with your theories, subscribe to the channel, and hit that hype button to help more people discover the truth behind crimes that seem too calculated to be real. Now let's follow the trail of a man who turned invisibility into his greatest weapon. Raymond Torres lived in the shadows. At 51, he had spent 14 years collecting garbage at one of Las Vegas's richest casinos, working the same quiet night shift, unnoticed, uncelebrated, and unremembered. His personnel file was almost blank. No infractions, no praise, just endless shifts logged and vacation days ignored. He was the definition of reliable, visible only when something broke. His life left no ripples, no criminal record, no drama. A working-class man who drifted from job to job before settling at the Desert Mirage. During his interview, he'd requested the graveyard shift. "Less noise," he'd said. "I work better alone." The casino, desperate for someone to fill those hours, hired him without hesitation. Each night, Raymond roamed the casino's back corridors like a ghost. He emptied trash from poker rooms, where fortunes vanished in minutes, cleared buffet waste, hauled the remnants of luxury parties and celebrity events. The Desert Mirage produced waste like other places printed money, constantly, thoughtlessly, endlessly. His team handled the casino's forgotten side. Shredded documents, spoiled food, broken parts, empty bottles, used cards. On a full weekend, the dumpsters overflowed before sunrise. But Raymond's access went far beyond the visible floors. His keycard opened the service, tunnels, the maintenance wings, and, most crucially, the disposal rooms beneath the cash-counting offices. Security guarded the vaults. Nobody watched the trash. He sometimes joked that he knew the casino's garbage better than the managers knew their books. People laughed and forgot. But it was true. Raymond studied waste like an art form. He memorized its patterns, its timing, the careless lapses when value disappeared unnoticed. He understood human blindness. People stop seeing what they expect to see. A garbage man is part of the scenery, unquestioned, unseen. His ordinary looks helped. Medium height, graying hair, work-stained face, identical blue uniform every night. Even the guards who greeted him couldn't describe him later. That invisibility wasn't luck. It was design. Raymond had cultivated it for years, knowing invisibility meant power. Others fought to be noticed. He chose to vanish. Nobody suspects the janitor. Nobody examines the man who empties the bins. For nearly 14 years, Raymond Torres watched, listened, and learned. He mapped the casino's inner workings one trash bag at a time, until the night came when the invisible man finally stepped out of the shadows. The discovery happened on a quiet Tuesday in March during one of Raymond's night pickups from the cash-counting room disposal area. The room itself was untouchable, armed guards, biometric locks, cameras everywhere. But its trash still had to go somewhere. Raymond's job was to haul those sealed bags from the service corridor to his truck. They were supposed to hold only shredded paper and cash straps, never money itself. That night, one bag felt different, heavy. He opened it. Inside, beneath shredded paper, lay 5 stacks of $100 bills. $50,000. Thrown away like trash. Raymond froze, heart pounding. He resealed the bag, finished his shift, and said nothing. No one noticed. No alarms. The money vanished to the landfill, and the casino's books balanced as if nothing had happened. Over the next weeks, Raymond began testing each sealed bag by weight. Some were heavier than they should be. Not often, but enough to reveal a pattern. Real cash was ending up in the garbage. Through quiet observation, he pieced it together. The Desert Mirage processed millions daily. Counting errors and voided batches happened constantly. In the chaos, bills meant for recount or destruction sometimes slipped into the wrong bags. Small losses, 50,000 here, 30,000 there, buried under rounding errors. But to Raymond, it was revelation. He had found the casino's blind spot. The system assumed that trash was worthless. Nobody questioned it, and that assumption was the weak link. He began to study everything: vault delivery times, guard rotations, camera blind spots, RFID waste tracking, audit schedules. He learned that during the annual summer audit, the casino's waste output exploded and supervision slackened. For 6 months, he gathered knowledge like ammunition, quietly, meticulously. He didn't touch another misplaced dollar. He waited invisible, preparing. While others schemed with guns and hackers, Raymond planned something simpler and far more dangerous. He would walk in, collect garbage, and walk out. The money would travel unseen, buried inside what no one ever inspected. His plan took shape, refined through sleepless nights. Every step rehearsed, every risk accounted for. He wouldn't need help. He wouldn't need luck. Just patience. And the one power he'd spent 14 years perfecting: being invisible. Raymond Torres understood that the difference between a fantasy and a plan was actionable detail. It wasn't enough to imagine stealing millions from the casino. He needed to engineer a scenario where every variable was controlled, every risk calculated, every movement purposeful. The heist would succeed or fail in the preparation. The first problem was timing. He needed a night when the vault would be handling maximum cash volume and generating maximum waste. The annual audit was the obvious choice, but Raymond knew he needed more than just a busy night. He needed chaos. He needed the kind of operational stress that made people cut corners and overlook details. He found his opportunity when the casino announced a major renovation to the vault area, scheduled to coincide with the audit period. The construction would require temporary relocation of some counting operations, installation of new security systems, and coordination between multiple departments. It was the perfect storm of disruption, urgent timelines, divided attention. Everyone focused on the new equipment rather than standard procedures. Raymond volunteered to work extra shifts during the renovation period. He wanted to be seen as helpful, reliable, the kind of employee who stepped up when the casino needed him. Nobody questioned it. Nobody found it suspicious. He was just Ray, the quiet garbage man, doing his job. The second problem was the containers. The casino's standard waste bins were equipped with RFID tags and were tracked through a computerized system. Raymond couldn't simply swap them out without triggering alerts. Instead, he developed a more subtle approach. He would modify existing containers to include hidden compartments that could hold cash while appearing to contain only compressed garbage. He spent weeks practicing the modifications in the privacy of his garage. The compartments needed to be invisible to casual inspection, but large enough to hold substantial amounts of currency. They needed to withstand the pressure of the compactor without revealing their contents, and they needed to be accessible once he was away from the casino. The solution involved creating false bottoms reinforced with steel plates and cushioned with foam padding. The compartments could be loaded through panels that looked like standard maintenance access points. Once sealed, they would be indistinguishable from solid construction. Raymond tested the design repeatedly, filling the compartments with weighted materials and running them through compression cycles until he was confident they could survive the process intact. The third problem was acquisition. He needed to get the money into the containers without being observed. This required understanding exactly when and where cash-laden waste would be available and how he could access it during his normal routine without deviation that might be noticed later. Raymond had observed that during audit periods, the counting rooms generated sealed bags of waste at irregular intervals throughout the night. These bags were dropped through the disposal chute and accumulated in containers in the service corridor. Normally, these containers were collected once per shift. But if Raymond staged an overflow situation, too much waste for the standard container to hold, he could justify returning for a second pickup later in the shift. The fourth problem was extraction. Getting modified containers out of the casino was relatively straightforward. They would leave the same way all trash left, in his truck. But Raymond needed a destination where he could safely extract the money and disappear before anyone realized what had happened. He identified a recycling facility 200 miles north, operated by a cousin who managed the night shift. The facility processed waste from multiple sources and operated with minimal oversight. More importantly, it included industrial incinerators used to dispose of certain types of waste. Raymond could process the containers there, extract the cash, burn the evidence, and be gone before sunrise. The fifth problem was escape. Raymond had no illusions about outrunning a federal investigation. Once the theft was discovered, law enforcement would identify him quickly. His only chance was to disappear completely, and that required preparation that went far beyond the heist itself. Over the course of several months, Raymond assembled a new identity. He obtained a counterfeit passport through contacts in the underbelly of Las Vegas, the kind of people who asked no questions if you paid in cash. He purchased a used van registered under a false name and parked it at a storage facility an hour outside the city. He opened bank accounts in Mexico using his new identity and began slowly transferring small amounts of legitimately earned money to establish a financial footprint. He studied Spanish intensively, using language learning software during his off hours. He researched Mexican cities where an American expatriate could blend in without attracting attention. He made contact with people who specialized in helping others disappear, learning the techniques of staying invisible in an age of digital surveillance. Raymond knew he would have to abandon everything: his apartment, his possessions, his entire life in Las Vegas. He prepared for this psychologically, gradually detaching from the few relationships he had maintained. He stopped attending the occasional family gatherings. He let friendships fade. By the time the heist arrived, Raymond Torres would be a man with no ties, no obligations, nothing to keep him tethered to his old identity. The sixth problem was discipline. Raymond knew that the most common reason heists failed was that criminals got greedy or impatient. They took unnecessary risks. They deviated from the plan. They talked to people they shouldn't trust. Raymond vowed that he would do none of these things. He would execute the plan exactly as designed, without improvisation, without deviation. And he would tell no one. Not a friend, not a lover, not a family member. The only way to keep a secret was to never share it. As the renovation date approached, Raymond finalized every detail. He memorized the route from the casino to the recycling facility. He practiced the timing of his movements. He visualized the heist from beginning to end, running through scenarios until the entire sequence felt like muscle memory. He prepared his escape vehicle, stocking it with supplies for a long drive: food, water, fuel cans, maps marked with back roads. He withdrew his savings in cash and converted some of it to Mexican pesos. He packed a single bag with clothing and essential documents. Everything else would be left behind. 3 days before the scheduled heist, Raymond drove the route to the recycling facility at night, timing the journey and noting potential complications. He contacted his cousin with a vague story about needing to dispose of some materials from a side job, establishing the pretext for his late-night arrival. He confirmed that the facility would be otherwise empty during the hours he planned to be there. 2 days before, he conducted a final inspection of the modified containers, ensuring that the hidden compartments were ready and that the access panels operated smoothly. He loaded the containers onto a spare truck and practiced the entire loading and unloading sequence until he could complete it in darkness by feel alone. One day before, Raymond worked his normal shift at the casino, behaving exactly as he always did. He collected trash. He exchanged brief pleasantries with coworkers. He waved to security guards. He was invisible, unremarkable, the same as he had been for 14 years. Nobody noticed the slight tension in his shoulders or the way his eyes lingered a fraction longer on the surveillance cameras. Nobody detected the electric anticipation running through his veins. That night, Raymond Torres went home to his apartment and sat in the darkness, thinking about the man he had been and the man he was about to become. He thought about 14 years of invisibility, of being overlooked and underestimated. He thought about the security systems designed by experts who never imagined that the greatest vulnerability could be something as mundane as trash. He thought about how much could change in a single night if you were patient enough, careful enough, bold enough to see an opportunity that existed in plain sight. He didn't sleep. He didn't need to. His mind was crystalline, focused, running through the plan one final time. By morning, Raymond Torres would either be a fugitive, carrying millions in stolen cash, or he would be in federal custody facing decades in prison. There was no middle ground, no turning back. The plan was in motion. The night began like any other at the Desert Mirage Casino. The parking lots filled with tourists and regulars seeking fortune or escape. The slot machines chimed their hypnotic melodies. The dealers shuffled cards with practiced efficiency. High rollers gathered in the exclusive salons, wagering amounts that could fund retirements or destroy lives. The casino's heart, its vault, processed an endless stream of cash, the lifeblood of an operation that never slept, never stopped, never questioned its own invulnerability. In the counting rooms, workers moved through their audit procedures with the exhausted focus of people approaching the end of a long night. The renovation had made everything more complicated. New equipment was being installed. Old protocols were temporarily modified. Supervisors bounced between stations, trying to maintain quality control while meeting aggressive deadlines imposed by upper management. Mistakes were inevitable. Corrections were hasty. The waste accumulated faster than usual. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Raymond Torres drove his garbage truck through the employee entrance of the Desert Mirage, just as he had done thousands of times before. The guard at the gate barely looked up from his phone, waving Raymond through with the muscle memory of routine. The truck's RFID transponder pinged the security system, logging his entry. Everything appeared normal. Everything was being recorded, and none of it would matter. Raymond parked at the loading dock and began his standard rounds, starting with the public areas, poker rooms, bars, restaurants. He worked methodically, taking his time, establishing his presence throughout the building. Security footage would show him following his usual pattern, nothing unusual, nothing rushed. He chatted briefly with a janitor taking a smoke break, commenting on how busy the casino had been. Just Ray doing his job, invisible in his ordinariness. At 3:25, he made his first pickup from the secure disposal corridor beneath the counting rooms. 2 standard containers, both full, both properly tagged. He loaded them onto the truck using the hydraulic lift, noting their weight. Heavy, very heavy. The audit was generating significant waste, just as he had anticipated. Raymond returned to the loading dock and made a show of checking his manifest, frowning as if he had noticed a problem. He radioed the facility's supervisor, reporting that the containers from the secure corridor were fuller than usual, and that overflow might be an issue if waste generation continued at this pace. He suggested he might need to make a second pickup later in the shift to prevent backup. The supervisor, dealing with a dozen other renovation-related complications, barely registered the comment, acknowledging it with a distracted confirmation. At 3:40, Raymond backed his truck into position at the loading dock for the second time that night. The security guard was now on his phone, probably browsing social media to stay awake. Raymond exchanged a lazy wave with him before heading back to the secure corridor. The cameras watched everything. Raymond moved casually, unhurried, a man with no reason to be nervous because he had nothing to hide. In the service corridor, Raymond quickly assessed the situation. 3 new containers had been filled and were waiting for collection. The audit team was working faster than normal, trying to complete their task before the morning shift arrived. Perfect. Raymond checked the seals on the waste bags visible through the container openings. Several had the distinctive weight and density he had learned to recognize. This was the critical moment. Raymond had perhaps 8 minutes before his absence might be noted, before the cameras watching the loading dock would record the truck sitting idle for longer than routine justified. He worked with the precision of practiced repetition, executing the plan exactly as rehearsed. He wheeled one of the new containers to a blind spot he had identified months ago, a corner where the camera angle was obstructed by a support column and the lighting was poorest. From his cart, he retrieved the modified container with its hidden compartment. The containers were identical in appearance. The RFID tags were functionally similar enough that a quick scan wouldn't reveal the swap. Only a detailed database check would show the discrepancy, and such checks were never performed in real time. Raymond opened the modified container's access panel and began transferring the heaviest waste bags from the authentic container. He worked by touch and memory, identifying the bags likely to contain cash by their weight and feel. He didn't open them to verify. No time and unnecessary risk. He loaded 8 bags into the hidden compartment, sealed the panel, then filled the visible portion of the modified container with lighter waste to match the expected appearance. The authentic container, now partially empty, he topped off with garbage from other sources. To a casual observer, both containers would appear equally full. The weight differential would be detectable if someone specifically checked, but nobody checked. Raymond had been collecting this trash for 14 years, and in all that time, not once had anyone questioned the weight of a waste container. He moved the modified container to the collection point and positioned it with the others awaiting pickup. The swap had taken 6 minutes. He returned to the loading dock, where the truck sat exactly as he had left it, the security guard still absorbed in his phone. Raymond loaded all 3 containers onto the truck, noting their positions for later reference. The modified container went in the center, surrounded by legitimate waste. At 3:47, Raymond activated the compactor. The machinery groaned and hydraulics hissed as the mechanism crushed the garbage, reducing volume and preparing it for transport. The modified container, engineered to withstand this pressure, performed exactly as designed. The hidden compartment, reinforced and cushioned, protected its contents from the crushing force. To any observer, it was just another cycle of the compactor, routine and unremarkable. Raymond completed the rest of his rounds with deliberate normalcy. He collected trash from the restaurants, the maintenance areas, the staff facilities. He logged each pickup in his digital manifest. He responded to a radio call about a spill in the gaming area and helped the cleaning crew with the containment. He was thorough, professional, the model employee. At 4:02 in the morning, Raymond Torres drove his garbage truck through the employee exit of the Desert Mirage Casino. The guard at the gate gave him the same indifferent wave he had received for 14 years. The RFID system logged his departure. The security footage captured his truck turning onto the service road and disappearing into the darkness. By the time the sun rose over Las Vegas and the vault audit team completed their final reconciliation, Raymond would be 200 miles away. Inside the truck's compactor, crushed beneath layers of casino waste, hidden in a compartment designed to be invisible, $13.4 million was leaving the building. The theft had taken less than an hour from start to finish. Nobody had noticed anything unusual. Nobody had questioned the garbage man. The plan had worked. Raymond didn't go home. Home meant arrest. Instead, he drove north on Highway 95, headlights carving through the desert until Las Vegas faded to a glow behind him. He obeyed every traffic rule, blending into the flow of trucks that carried Nevada's sleepless economy through the night. By dawn, he reached the recycling facility, a lonely industrial compound his cousin managed. The man had given him the gate code weeks earlier, asking no questions. Inside the cavernous incineration hall, Raymond backed the garbage truck into position. His cousin, half awake and smoking, accepted a brief explanation about sorting recyclables, then left. He didn't care. Alone, Raymond worked fast. He opened the modified container, exposing 8 hidden bags. Bundled cash spilled out. Casino bands, $100 bills, millions in plastic-wrapped stacks. He counted roughly 13 million, maybe more. For a moment, the weight of it hit him, but emotion had no place here. He packed the money into duffels, then fed the compactor, uniform, phone, and ID into the furnace. Flames devoured the evidence. At sunrise, he drove away in a different van under a new name. The garbage truck remained behind, unlocked. By the time his cousin found it, Raymond was hours gone, already southbound through back roads, paying cash for gas and food. Looking like any working man, his Las Vegas apartment stayed untouched. A ghost home with nothing personal to trace. When agents arrived later, they found no clues, no life. By nightfall, Raymond crossed into Mexico with a flawless counterfeit passport. The border guard didn't even glance twice. Behind him, the Desert Mirage Casino was beginning to panic. Ledgers unbalanced, millions missing, the cameras showing nothing but a garbage truck and a quiet man doing his job. The FBI traced him as far as a truck stop in Arizona. After that, nothing. No digital trail, no bank activity, no sightings. The investigation died in silence. The money was never recovered. The casino tightened procedures but could not erase the truth. You can't stop a man patient enough to study your weaknesses for 14 years. Somewhere in Mexico, or farther still, Raymond Torres lives under another name. He speaks a new language, walks unseen, and remains exactly what he always was, invisible.